bigs that we all pretty much like over Zach Edey, which I don't know where these mock drafts. I mean, we've seen firsthand in some of these games, with our own eyes with Nebraska, where they're taking Edey pretty much out of the game, and it's really amazing to see how a lot of these people are putting him as high as they are.
Okay, so we teased it a little bit, but let's really kind of get into why we think Edey's a little bit overrated. For me personally, I know it's like his size, but which you would think would be a good thing, especially seeing somebody like Victor Wembanyama. But his size is almost more similar to like a Taco Fall. It's like big, but it's not functional. It's not. His mobility is a really big issue for me, and I feel like he's been better at it this year in college, but the NBA is a completely different thing because of how open the court is, how much space the guards have to attack. So I think I just can see him getting absolutely cooked by someone in a switch. And his foot speed is really slow, and he's like getting beat down the court by normal bigs. So NBA level bigs who are a different level of athlete could really give him fits. And for that reason alone, I think lottery or first round, for that matter, is a little bit of a stretch. But then you get to some of his offensive issues, and while he has touch that can appear to be really good at times, and his system at Purdue gives him opportunities to duck in and get a lot of dunks, but outside of that, he hasn't shown much. He hasn't shown the ability to step out. He did
hit that three this weekend.
True. First career, banked it in.
Oh yeah. That was cash.
But like at this point in your career, do you really want to be doing first of anything? Like
no.
That's what I was gonna say though, because I feel like when you're 7'5", like okay, yeah, you're gonna have an advantage. But I think, you talked about the defensive versatility with that. That I think for me, that's the main thing too. But also like his offensive game. Like for me to be sold on him as a draft pick, I feel like he just have to be doing more than just being taller than everybody. I don't want to sound like an Edey hater, but like at the end of the day, that's just what we're doing. But I feel like I want to see like I wish that he had more spacing ability, because at the end of the day, like that's what would keep a player like him on the floor. Also, I would like to see more playmaking out of him, especially when you're that tall and you draw so much attention. I wish you'd kind of see some better reads from him. But, I mean, I don't know.
I feel like double teams shouldn't bother him as much as they do, too.
Oh, yeah. Especially in the post when he picks his dribble up. They're just standing there, hands straight up, and he's looking down on them, and he's still, he can't go over. But I feel like somebody in a Zach Edey conversation that gets absolutely shafted every single year is Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton. They're very similar players, but Kalkbrenner can shoot, at least he's shown this year. He can block shots with the best of them in the country. He has some of the mobility issues that Zach Edey has, but he brings so much more versatility and spacing offensively. And I don't understand why someone like Zach Edey gets boosted up as high as he has this year when former Defensive Player of the Year in the conference in Ryan Kalkbrenner is nowhere to be found on these mock drafts. It's very confusing to me.
I think a lot of people just look at the size number, like the height number. Like 7'5", he's 7'5". Like, it looks good, but I think it's almost like a smoke and mirrors type thing. Like, yes, he's 7'5", but that's not the good thing. Like, it's not a good thing. One, because how many 7'5" guys in the NBA have ever worked out? And, like, just from a skill perspective, and then you take that number, they had to deal with injuries. So, I don't see him having a major impact on the NBA anytime. I don't think he could crack a roster. I think Taco Fall is a very similar career arc. Personally, I don't see it. I would love to be proved wrong. I think if he can improve his speed and mobility, he'll have a future in the league. But as it stands today, I think he's just someone that guards like Steph Curry, like Tyrese Maxey, they just target endlessly until you put him on the bench.
I imagine a Zach Edey switch matchup with someone like De'Aaron Fox, and it's just like within 1 second, it's a blown coverage and it's an easy floater for Swipa.
That boy is getting turned into a 5-course meal. But I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Like, I can understand trying to take them in the second round, especially if you're a contending team and you just like, you just want to take a chance on somebody. But when you're in the lottery and you have like, you need to really utilize your draft picks, I feel like you're not really adding something that you can't find somewhere else. I talked about it in, getting a veteran guy, but I also just feel like he doesn't have insane athleticism. He doesn't. It's not like we talked about Trevin Brazil, where he has that athleticism where you could plug him in right away and he's contributing. I feel like Edey, he just doesn't have that. Okay, I might not be good, but I might not be good long term, but I can come in and do something for you right away. He doesn't have that same type of plug and play ability. But
okay, so we talked about some of the negatives. You had to craft the ideal situation. If you were a team and you just really wanted Zach Edey for some reason, you had to make him work. What would that situation look like for you guys?
I would say if a team like the Spurs had a second round pick, if you could go and bring somebody like a Zach Edey off the bench, maybe you get lucky and somehow a Wemby and Zach Edey lineup does something either defensively or in the rebounding category. That could just be something that you strike a little bit of gold with some luck in the second round. I think it's going to be teams that have bigs that are more mobile focused, maybe perimeter, and then you have someone else that has this elite size who can kind of just sit there and either take a couple fouls on some of the heavier bigs like a Nurkic or a Jokic, and just let some of those more shooting bigs get that spacing off.
I feel like also a team like the Thunder, I'm just thinking about right now, like they have Holmgren, but I feel like their big room is it's a little iffy. But I feel like they have a lot of good spacing, and they get a lot of their defense or a lot of their offense off of straight line drives and isolation. So I feel like he's a guy, he can just come in, rebound, and there's not really much required of him, and that team already gets up and down okay without him. So that's a team where could maybe find something, but I don't know. I feel like it's also a stretch a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think like off the dome, like what the ideal.
Yeah, it's a second round pick, and I just want to say it because I don't think any of us have said it yet, but the only reason we're saying Zach Edey and lottery in the same sentence is on Draft Express. They just posted earlier this week that Zach Edey is projected lottery in their newest 2024 mock. If you don't know, that's Jonathan Givony. I feel like that's someone who usually is pretty decent and accurate with his assessments. But that was one that when I was looking through my feed, that popped out to me pretty much instantly as something that we had to talk about because that was a huge disagreement for me.